Hi, welcome to video. How do you come to terms with the fact that an NPC from Pokemon Legends ZA looks just like you? Anyway, it's been an entire year since I made a video about Slay the Princess, a game that I discovered last year that had a massive impact on me. It's a game I truly love, now being my favourite out of every video game I've ever played. So good that I knew that I'd be making a video about it within 30 minutes of starting it. In that video, I discussed the entire game, all the different routes we could go through, and their collective effect on me, someone who truly needed this game more than anything else when I started playing it. I think about this game all the time. The expert writing and themes, the fantastic voice acting, and the incredibly impressive illustrations shown throughout. I felt satisfied with all that I had written in the script for that video, feeling like I truly explained what this game meant to me, but I knew that the video wasn't complete. Of course, the reason for that being the game wasn't complete. On October 24th, 2024, exactly 1 year and 1 day after the game's initial release, the Pristine Cut update came out, something that I was fully aware was coming as I was writing that initial video. I had already accepted that my video would be finished after that point in time, and made slight references to it in the script from the little I knew. Back then I was thinking, well, I imagine it'll be good. Maybe next year I'll make a follow-up video about the things it introduces. But what I didn't expect, and in retrospect probably should have, was that the content in this update greatly surpassed any expectations I could have had for it. Now before I elaborate too much, just some general notes for this video. For starters, if you're watching this, then I'm assuming that you've either played the game or seen my previous video, because a lot of what I'll discuss in terms of what the update adds expands heavily from the main ideas present in the rest of the game. I'll be making references to other routes, and talking about the main story we'll see during a run-through of the game, so this isn't really a video that makes sense to watch if you know nothing about Slay the Princess. For most of my videos I like to go in with the assumption that the viewer may know nothing about the topic, but here I can't really make that assumption without ending up just making my first video all over again. So watch that. I'm assuming you have knowledge. Most important is that this is a horror game with a lot of dark themes, stuff that I know some people just won't really want to see. To help with this, at the start of each chapter, there will be a small list of content warnings for what you're about to see, so make sure to keep an eye on those. In general though, expect blood and gore, which will be somewhat censored, general horror themes, death, and oppression. With all of that said, let's get into the content that this update added. 3 routes were extended, bringing context and intrigue to certain vessels, letting their stories feel more complete. 3 brand new routes were added to the game, helping build upon some vessels that felt slightly neglected in how their stories could end, and furthering the main ideas of the game in really compelling ways. There's also a brand new ending, which I will talk about at some point, but probably not in as much detail, so it's a pretty substantial update. They even added a gallery, with hints towards finding scenes you haven't encountered, and redesigned the Moment of Clarity, making her appear even more bleak than before. With that out of the way, it's time to talk about how this update truly improved on what I already thought was a perfect experience. Chapters so good that some of them became my favourites in the entire game. For starters, I want to talk about one of the chapters that was expanded on within the update, having a full arc as opposed to it ending quite quickly, letting us understand what the princess is actually like in this form, the Den. Previously, this chapter would end almost as soon as the princess appeared, in a way that didn't always feel satisfying, especially with all the tension built up throughout The Beast, the previous chapter. Though speaking of the Beast, the cabin preceding your encounter with her has changed a bit, taking on a much more wild look than in the previous version. Heading down to meet her, the voice of the hunted haunts us, trying to help us stay alert in the dark environment, keeping track of her movements as we dodge and weave as much as we can, doing everything to avoid her attacks, until eventually she outmaneuvers us, bisecting our body, lamenting the fact that you'll die before she gets a chance to escape. Coming back into existence, the wood appears completely overgrown. We find ourselves joined by either the skeptic or the stubborn, depending on whether we tried to escape her or tried to fight back against her in her previous life. The voices try to craft a plan on the way up to the cabin, but of course, no matter what conclusions they reach, we're the ones in charge. We get to decide what path we can take. And while in the past, it felt like there were only 2 choices, things branch out quite a lot here. Let's start with how things go when we have the stubborn alongside us. He's a voice that is fully intent on fighting her to the death. No sense in trying to reason with a beast. The only way out of this is to kill, at least that's the way he sees it. We can try and go in without had the blade, but frankly it's a fruitless endeavour. The only way we could hold our own in a fight against her is with the blade. It's the closest we can get to making things even against what seems like a feral predator. It's what happens when the stubborn pushes us that brings out the new nature of this chapter. Reacting to her initial attack, we make the first strike, proving that she too can bleed. We're not some weakling that exists only to be torn apart. We can survive down here too. You can see a sense of fear within her, but it's not enough to hold her back. Lunging forward again, there's an amount of doubt. Her caught between instinct and logic. And from this point, it's an exchange of blows, shrouded in darkness, an evenly fought match until she briefly gets the upper hand. Just enough to take a bite from our flesh and consume it, which, amazingly, heals her wounds. It's like we've done nothing to her at all. At this point, things shift, because the hunted believes that we should be able to do the same to her, yet the stubborn doesn't care if that's even possible. He just wants us to take the next opportunity available and end her in one fell swoop. But it's the way they present these thoughts that gives some insight into how they view the princess in this form. The stubborn doesn't seem to regard her as a conscious being, which we know she must be. She was humanoid at the start of this. He even calls her a mindless animal, showing that he's stuck in his ways to an extent, believing that stabbing her, the thing we've been trying to do all throughout this route, is the only way out of this. Following his words, we do stab her, but the hunted senses that this isn't the clean end that was expected. She retaliates, clawing and gnawing at our body to try and make herself whole again. Even if it is too late for her, our blade deep in her heart. There's nothing she can do to change this. Her actions tear us apart, chunks of our body being consumed, and her body trying to regenerate over the pristine blade. Fusing her flesh with our claws, collapsing to the ground, we're both combined into just a mess of bleeding flesh. In a way, we're one, and fighting against each other like this feels wrong. If we cast our minds back to the game's ending, and the true nature of ourselves and the princess, this does make sense. We can only really imagine how it must feel, but based on how the two have acted in chapters from the previous video, I imagine it would have presented them with the sense that it felt right to be as one. That the idea of fighting against a being that, in a way, is you doesn't make any sense. Most importantly, that's only one side of things, because the hunted looks towards the idea of falling into instinct, fighting back against the princess in the same way, becoming more animalistic, and to them it feels correct. Considering what we've just talked about, this does feel right to me as well. She's just like us, even if she does appear as a beast. We're still the same. Just being animalistic doesn't take away her humanity, but in the same way, appearing more humanoid, even if we are bird, that doesn't take away our animalistic side. So we embrace instinct, clawing at her with our bodies rather than a weapon, and swallowing a chunk of her flesh as she howls in pain. We start to feel stronger, like this wasn't all for naught, but of course, she continues her attempts at slaughter, fighting on despite how violent we can get, the stubborn having fallen into these instincts as well. It quickly becomes a back and forth. She takes a chunk, we take one back, both lost in the exchange of power, feasting on each other endlessly, the same wounds healing as fast as they were created, an endless cycle of destruction and rebirth, a gory Ouroboros in a sense. The more things go on, the more we change, and the more the two of us resemble one another. We're living messes of flesh that are stuck in this rhythm, and as gross as it sounds, there's sort of a beauty to it. An endless dance where we throw away our humanity, becoming each other in a way, seeing the world on an equal playing field. Eventually, the cycle fades, and we're brought out of our reality. Hi hands, it's been a while. Now, there's not much I can really add that I haven't gone into already. This idea of us being the same, despite appearances, is really strong within this chapter, and I think we see it best when the stubborn is taken out of the equation. If we bring forth the skeptic, he's much more intent on luring the princess out of the darkness, knowing that it will be much easier to take her on her own turf. So, of course, that's what we go in to do. When we sense that she's ready to strike, we make her escape, rushing towards the exit from the basement, and climbing up the cramped, rocky tunnel, trying to keep steady as we hear her approach, until the sounds of her pursuit slow to a halt. We turn around to see her completely stuck, too large to make it through the tiny tunnel, giving us a much clearer view of her than we got previously. We can clearly see that in her animalistic evolution, she became someone much different to what we knew her as, even just in the previous chapter. But as she tried to free herself from this prison, she no longer seems like the overwhelming threat that she was. Unable to reach us, she's desperate to attack, but there's no way she can. She's become a creature worthy of pity rather than fear. It doesn't feel right to have defeated her like this. She gives off hope right in front of us, only able to plead for our help with sad puppy dog eyes. The hunted feels like we should help her. After all, she must feel how he's been feeling since the beginning. But the skeptic, of course, doesn't trust her. Sure, we can lunge towards her with our pristine blade, but she reacts immediately to the strike, clawing us back, and making sure that there was no way out for us. If she's going down, she'd be taking us with her. It's not like it makes a huge difference. The hands come for her as she bleeds out either way, but it's an eye for an eye. Every attempt to hurt her just hurts us back. After waiting far too long, maybe it's time to just stop. Despite our blade being within our grasp, we can simply turn away, climbing up the cabin and abandoning her. But of course, as soon as we turn away, she restarts her struggles against the rocky walls, wailing loudly, the walls around us shaking with her efforts. Despite all we do, the tunnel isn't stable enough to hold, crumbling on top of us before we can escape. The collapsed rock trapping us in a confined space. We can barely even move, the blade out of reach, the only thing we can see being stone, and the princess's sad eye staring back at us. We're both stuck in the rubble, and it doesn't feel right to blame her. We're just victims of circumstance, really, both within the tunnel and within this construct. None of this had to happen. The narrator tries to convince us that she still needs to die, that she's still at fault, but I don't like him. And for fuck's sake, who cares right now? There are rocks. Slowly but surely, everything fades. A dark and somber passing of time that leads back to the shifting mound once more. Despite the hell that we can go to alongside her, there is actually a way for us to escape. We just have to actually try to help her. We drop the blade and show her compassion, giving her no reason to fight back, despite the narrator's protests. She eventually takes our hand, realizing that it's best for us to work together, to trust each other for once, a mutual benefit. Despite her massive size, she starts to budge as we pull her through, her back legs pushing forward to help us along, but the tunnel starts to crumble again, and within an instant, we're trapped, and he berates us for even trying. You'd think it was over, but
you open your eyes to see the princess.
The princess saved us, hovering just above our body, holding back the debris as best she can, clearly struggling, but not wanting the two of us to suffer down here. We do what we can to dig ourselves out, clawing at the earth, desperately approaching a way out, bonding with her in a way. We see light, feel fresh air, and the princess immediately pushes her way out, leaving us alone while the narrator chastises us for letting her go free, when she clearly didn't care.
How many times do you have to be wrong before you stop talking?
Oh hey, she cared. No matter what terrible thoughts the narrator tries to implant in our heads, our connection with her triumphs, as she rescues us from the pit, dragging us out onto the soft grass, finally able to relax. Things start to fade now that everything is fine, and this is where I can talk more about the themes that impact me here. Obviously, there's the connection between the hero and the princess, how that bond transcends us being torn apart, and how every time we find ourselves being close to each other, things just go better for us, showing that the two indeed should be together. What also stands out to me though, of course, relates to change. I said in my first video that a big part of the way I think about this game relates to the concept of change, a concept that the princess represents, and this still persists with these new chapters. Here, I see the idea that no matter how much something changes you, it doesn't make you less of yourself in the end. Going from a princess to a beast, to an even stranger beast, it's not something that fundamentally changed who she was on the inside. She was still able to connect with us. She had compassion as long as we showed it first. Being a monster of sorts didn't make her less human, and it benefited us both to still treat her as a person, because that is who she was. With the den fully explored, I think it's worth moving on to one of the brand new chapters that this update introduced, one that shows off some pretty interesting themes, presented in a quite dark way I'd say. Trying to free the princess initially, while possessing the knife, will take us to meet the prisoner, a colder version of her trapped entirely by shackles, with the skeptic joining us. In my last video, I talked about how he could simply speak to her, and upon her urging us to help her get out, slide her the blade, so that she could decapitate herself in graphic detail, barely even reacting as her life fell away from her, as well as her head doing the same. No matter what we did, our journey in this chapter would end in this chapter, or send us to meet the Grey. But the interesting thing about a new chapter being added in this route was that it actually invalidates this part of my old video. We can still reach the Grey in this update, through fighting with the princess, but a world where she decapitates herself will no longer lead to the same fate. We head upstairs, leaving her body alone in the basement, only to find an endless void outside. the narrator gleefully telling us that this is our reward for slaying her. Even if we didn't have much involvement within that, but especially with the skeptic intervening, we know that this isn't right for us. Our story isn't meant to end in the void. With the blade still in our hands, there's only one way out. But we can look at things a few different ways, leading to one of three voices joining us in the next chapter. Either the paranoid, the cheated, or the broken. Starting with the paranoid, we come to on an island, far up high in the sky, harsh rock faces around, wooden structures in lieu of plant life, and most concerning of all, chains fucking everywhere. This is a great time to remind everyone that these CGs are hand-drawn. Do you know how annoying chains are to draw? They're consistent, but so slow. Our voices lament reality's continued evolution, never giving us much of a choice, like we're a prisoner in a sense. This is true in all routes, but here it does feel most potent. The prisoner is the only time we get to fully slay the princess after our first encounter, and still get to see our reward after all, giving us the sense that there's no end to the torment, even with our enemy gone. The idea of us being trapped here is furthered simply by the fact that we already have the blade. We've never started with it in our grasp. It's always been in the cabin, or with the princess. Now, in chapter 1, we were able to choose to take it with us. In chapter 2, the skeptic actually forced us to take it. But here, we're forced from the beginning. The fucked up part is, the voices argue about whether it feels right to have it, like it's fate for us to wield the blade, and we can't actually get rid of it. We can try to fight against our voices, but they protest too much for us to go through with it, the paranoid being too afraid of her to let it go, and the skeptic feeling the same way, though the hero doesn't like that they're stopping us from making the choice. We, the player, are the ones who are meant to decide things here. Nevertheless, we eventually continue up the path, seeing the cabin floating in this void, connected by a rickety bridge. It's literally the only way we're able to go, the sword forcing us to reach her. Heading inside, we see the cabin covered by more chains, a sight that made me want to apologize to my graphite pencils. The mirror blocks our view of the way down, so we step towards it, but it's not so simple. The cabin contained no solid ground, the chains being only the illusion of a room, meaning that this first step sends us falling down, hurtling through a mess of chains and hooks until we're suddenly stopped by the excruciating pain of those same hooks, digging into our muscle, pulling against us, keeping us from moving further. The space is deep and dark, and through the pain, of course, it's hard to focus. But already in the distance we can see her, standing there, menacingly. While we still have the blade, what can we even fucking do? We're fully trapped. We can try talking to her, but she doesn't respond, only met with the harsh sounds of the chains that have us held captive. No matter what we do, she takes a step forward, and the chains pull at our body again, increasing our level of pain to an even further degree. She's now just close enough for us to get a clearer view of her, and this may well be one of the coolest designs she has, even despite her looking quite like her default state, surrounded by chains, head locked in its dreary cage, staring with an ice-cold look on her face. Her head is both literally and figuratively detached, talking of the idea that our choices don't matter. And while we can easily think to ourselves that this isn't true, the path to this route was filled with forced decisions. We had no agency over whether we brought the knife in this and the last chapter. We were bound to die once we got our happy ending, and on some level, the voices have lamented this fact too. We keep trying to escape, but it becomes more clear that this version of the princess is one who detached herself from the idea of free will. If nothing changes, no matter what we do, what's even the point of trying? Why not just accept that it's pointless and go along for the ride? So just to be clear, I don't fucking believe in this at all. We'll come back to this of course, but it's such a strong theme that I felt the need to make that clear. She speaks as if there's no way we can end the inevitable, that we've been stuck in a cycle since this began, never to escape. She steps towards us, increasing the pain. While she's at peace, detached from her own reality, the chains tighten as she approaches, telling us of the cycle that we're caught in. Her words feeling all the more grim knowing that death could come at any moment.
This is all getting so predictable, isn't it? Pop.
What follows is not death. We still have consciousness, us now too being a lone head, separate from our body. She approaches wordlessly, like she's here to collect us, except...
And now, the cut.
The cycle goes on. The princess's head is dropped nearby us, as we watch the beginning of another gory dance that brings out a sense of beauty, this time between our two bodies, acting autonomously since everything here is predetermined. There's this idea here that bliss comes with detachment, in a literal sense in this case. Things feel serene, wonderful to see play out when you don't believe that you have the capacity to change it. Things go on without any input. You aren't really needed. All of our pain came from trying to utilize the free will that we clearly didn't have. In the end, the cycle is complete, now that we no longer have to worry. Now, like I've said, I don't really believe in this concept, but it's definitely interesting to think about. Especially because, while there are no wrong answers, we have to wonder whether this outcome even feels right. Is detaching yourself from the idea that you have agency a good thing, or is it in fact dangerous? Unsurprisingly, I lean more towards the latter, but there will be much more for us to say about our other options here. Back to our initial meeting, in a fit of desperation, we turn the blade back on ourselves, hoping to cut the chains away from our body, the voices having to convince themselves that it's possible to cut through, because they're convinced that nothing will ever change unless they convince themselves that it can. Eventually, we manage to free one arm, which is just enough to have hope that we can escape from this. We continue on through the pain, getting another arm free, but causing another step forward. It's getting harder to breathe, but then we finally collapse, and the voices realize something. We believe that our chains could break, and that propelled us enough to get through them. Isn't that a show of how we do have free will? Why would that be a part of this cycle? Is the cycle even real, or just a show of circumstance? Unpickable options read, the pieces fall into place. For every permutation, there is a pattern, and when the pattern is learned, the illusion dissolves. But was the pattern always there? Or were you the ones who wrote it in the sand? The writers must follow their own script. We don't have to accept the pattern. There's no use in believing it to be objective fact. Taking it in our own way, we give the princess our blade, the only way we know how, and she clearly accepts this as death, freeing herself from her chains, only metaphorically. She questions the pattern that trapped us. Maybe she had been completely wrong, but obviously there is still more. We've exhausted all that we can really gain from going through with the paranoid, but only the slightest difference in choice is enough to bring out another voice. Making it so that the skeptic is the one that slays us specifically is what leads to the return of everyone's favourite voice, the broken. Okay, listen, I liked him. The broken is very shaken up by the reward the narrator bestowed onto us. Traumatized by the deaths that surrounded them. When we look towards the blade, the broken isn't as accepting of the fact that we already have it, agreeing with us when we try to throw it away, knowing that violence won't get us out of this mess, despite the skeptic's insistence. With that, the cycle has been broken. When we return to her, we're still caught between the countless chains and hooks. Nothing has changed down here. She still approaches us, talking about our cycle, how she's bound in chains, watching us approach with blade in hand. Except that's no longer true. We don't have it. We can refute her arguments. We can't be in a hopeless loop when it's already broken. But once we do that, realization finally hits her. This willing detachment seemed to bring her clarity and calm, but she was just hiding the pain of feeling powerless against this world under the idea that things were meaningless. Her body stops, and her head questions what it means. Almost as if her detachment runs so deep that she doesn't see her body's actions as her own anymore. But we can make it clear that she does have power. There's nothing stopping her from choosing to escape the pain hidden under layers of nihilism. Nihilism and believing in a lack of free will feel very strongly explored here. And while, once again, the game doesn't present any choice as wrong, we have to ask whether it feels right for her to accept that her actions aren't her own. Her turning towards being the image of nothingness. Almost hopeless. I personally do everything I can to avoid falling into this worldview. The idea of a world devoid of meaning is a terrifying one that I've even believed in to an extent at some points in my life. Earth only takes up so much space in space, and we don't know what else is out there. How important can we be? Do our choices matter on any realistic scale? Especially in a world where we can lack control. These are scary thoughts to handle, but I've found myself viewing it in a way that at least feels right for me. There doesn't need to be an inherent and clear meaning to the world for things to matter. We live, breathe, we impact those around us. We can help our peers, prevent them from making mistakes, help people realize who they are, and give them the care they need. We can pour our thoughts out there, create things, learn new skills and utilize them. I can't imagine all of these things amount to a world with no meaning. We can find the meaning in our own lives. To finish off our journey here quickly, with the truth discovered and accepted, she beckons us to help her truly get out of this dark and desolate pit. Because sometimes, when things are dark, that's all you need. A helping hand. Or hands. On our way out, we quickly ponder the idea that even with this talk of free will, we're locked into one outcome here, unless we threw her head back down or something. We're not doing that shit. We saved her, and everything slowly fades out. like always. That list isn't a joke, by the way. This is easily the most intense chapter that this game has, and despite it having a laundry list of things that could drive people away from it, it's fucking peak. Anyway, so in the cage, we saw that idea of the princess not really seeing her body as her own, and that's pretty interesting considering the chapter that I'm going to talk about next. Here we'll be going through another chapter that got extended with this update, previously ending quite suddenly, in a way that, at least at the time, did make enough sense. But despite that, the way this extension evolves this chapter greatly surpassed any expectations I had. If it wasn't clear enough from the content warnings, I am of course talking about the Fury, around access through the tower, and the adversary. Her initial form felt very fitting for both paths, being a midpoint between the adversary's violent nature and the tower's divine power, capable of great destruction, but focused only on us. As a quick reminder of how we can approach her, from the tower she commands us to end our own life, but we resist, slowly making our way towards her, and retaliating the moment she lets her guard down, her losing her composure, pulling her off of the pedestal she had herself on top of, and perishing a result of her turning to violence, leading to the stubborn joining the broken when we come back to life. From the adversary though, we refuse to fight her on our own terms, leaving the blade behind, and either telling her that we're not fighting, which brings out the cold, refusing to die anytime she pummels us, which brings out the contrarian, or running away, still refusing the battle, bringing out the broken. I will reference back to these as we go on, but for starters, let's move forward from slaying the tower, seeing what happens when divinity and dominance become corrupted.
You're on a path in the woods, and at the end of the path... Okay, what the hell is that?
Yep, there he goes again. We approach the cabin, certain that we'll need the blade once again if we want to get anything done. And knowing what she's become, yeah, the sound of her heart is clear as day, beating on full display as we approach. She's an unsettling sight for some, stomping towards us. Internal muscles on full display, even more so when she frees her arm from her shackle. We can try and say something, or prepare to fight back, but it barely matters what we do, since no matter what, the moment we ready ourselves...
It's now or never. With a horrifying squelch, you are unwound.
Oh, this is where things ended previously, and I truly didn't expect to see it again after the update. I was expecting a complete rework to her route, though I guess it does make sense, you wouldn't want to invalidate people's save files potentially. But still, seeing us just pop, I didn't really think more could happen beyond this. We were unwound, basically a goner. What would even follow this? At first, she just stares, as if to say mission accomplished, and yet we still live on. We can even attempt to argue with her. I say attempt because we do not have a mouth anymore. We cannot scream. What we can do, however, is charge towards her. We may be down, but we're not out for the count. Despite our everything being, well, everywhere. We charge at her, evoking the slightest bit of fear, but still not breaking the barrier of godhood that she puts between you and her. As we attack, we explode. The Broken has as much faith in us as he did back at the start of things, by which I mean none faith. However, in our last moment, the princess taunts us, basically keeping us barely alive to prevent us from reviving, but the stubborn refuses to say this way, because he is. The narrator makes it clear how close to death we truly are. Oh my god, that's me! Through sheer tenacity, the stubborn manages to convince us that we can come back, so we shed this vessel to enter the next. We're released from our torment, and pick up our blade, catching the princess off guard. We're not meant to be able to come back to the same place again. She can sense that this is the endgame for you both. Unfortunately, it's pitifully easy for her to destroy us. Blinking probably takes more of her effort honestly, but we repeat. Oh god, it's you. A cycle begins. We come back, we explode. We come back, we explode. But neither of you give up. It's a constant struggle to come out on top, to the point where we're reborn, yet we remain as nothing. We slash towards her, and are destroyed, and yet we continue to be. She sees us as nothing at all.
You are nothing! An empty void that dared to dream it was alive!
With this, clarity comes. Maybe we are nothing, but we are persistent. We're still us. We're not tied to this body. We just are. This, of course, ties back to us being the long quiet, the seemingly endless void that fills the edges of this construct. As the long quiet, we make our move, threads of nothingness taking over her, something that she, being change itself, can't process. We can't exist, and yet we do. In her last moment, clarity comes, like it did when we became one with the den. She understands that we're one and the same, for the briefest moment before she vanishes. This is such an engaging route, but it's one that's best talked about when we've seen what else we can encounter here. Let's quickly go through the adversary, going in unarmed, and trying our best to fight her, quickly becoming outmatched, and coming back from death, unsettling her. Since we should clearly already be dead, obviously, knowing how the fury goes, this almost makes enough sense for us, but for her, it's not right. After a few revivals, we perish, and the Contrarian joins us to meet her again. Everything starts the same way, her charging forward, unwinding us, even as we show tenacity, but things change. Coming from the adversary means that her focus is on fighting us, and she feels numb, knowing that her new power is too much to do anything that feels satisfying for her. Despite her overwhelming power, she feels hurt on the inside. But the great thing is, we're more than capable of giving her a fight. We don't need to accept that this is death. We can push on, reinvigorating her, and pushing her to unwind us further. Our skin flies away in ribbons from our body, our muscles soon following suit. All the while she questions what makes us, us. This is an interesting question. The question of what we truly are. We can have parts taken away, but still be us in the end. We've seen a bit of this before, divorcing ourselves from our body in the last sequence, but still being all that we were, able to overtake her while being nothing at all. She craves the idea of finding out how deep she has to go to stop us from being ourselves. But in the real world, you can never truly do that. We are our experiences, our hopes and dreams, the secrets we keep and the ones we dare to share. And that never truly changes. Even as we grow, sometimes to the point where our past selves are basically unrecognizable, we're still us. We corner her, accepting that we never stop being ourselves. Death couldn't even prevent that. Even as we're torn fully apart while reaching for our heart, we're still us. Our actions persist while our being doesn't, and once again, we slay her with nothing at all. But of course, there's even more here still. We've been able to peek beneath the surface. There's pain behind her eyes, and surely we can still free her. There are two different ways I want to discuss this, because we can reach her from the tower with the broken and the stubborn, or the adversary with the stubborn and the broken. It may seem like these paths are the exact same, but interestingly, there's a stark contrast between them. They both begin in the typical way: approach, tenacity, unwound, smug giant. This time, we don't try to fight back, and she mocks our dying body, intent on torturing us for eternity. As revenge for what we've done to her, crouching down above our body, she starts to tear us apart again, but in a way that is deeply unsettling. We can feel her power within us, infiltrating the very molecules that make up our body, and she gets to work.
The body of a sapient creature has, on average, 30 trillion cells. One of those cells is peeled from the others.
A single cell completely gone. Now, a single cell is not enough to fundamentally change us. Hell, even a small cut is going to affect more than one cell. But she's looming above, questioning whether we're still us. And she continues. 2 cells, then 4, doubling each time. Even with 30 trillion cells in our body, the threat of all of those cells being torn away is a surreal yet terrifying one. Her impact on our body is growing. Faster and faster, we get torn away from ourselves. And still, she taunts.
Are you still there? Are you still you?
The numbers keep increasing, a constant audible reminder of the hell we're experiencing. The feeling of becoming lesser can't be escaped when it's being drilled into your skull. Our vision starts to get dull. Hundreds of cells become so inconsequential that the narrator ignores them, and still she taunts.
Are you still there? Are you still you?
It's a long and drawn out process, and the reality we see starts to warp as our eyes become useless. We're only in the millions, and our body is failing. And still, she taunts.
Are you still there? Are you still you?
We're still broken. Keeping count of our torture no longer makes a difference. She fully deconstructs us, pushing our body into contorted shapes that beings were never meant to be. How can we still be us when we're a plaything? A mess of meat and calcium that only exists to satisfy a being that is so much more than us. The stubborn tries to hold on to the idea that our continued existence must mean we can find a way out of this. It has to be worth something. And still, she taunts.
Are you still there? Are you still you?
The broken stops trying. seeming like he doesn't believe that we are what we were, but the stubborn persists. We're unraveled and then stretched out, in excruciating pain as our remaining cells get pushed to their limits. Can we be us if we're simply a line? The stubborn tries to hold on, but as we reach just a bit too far,
No.
he breaks. We're no longer ourselves. Now, if we came through the tower, we find ourselves being whole again, but the princess looks disheveled. She broke our spirit, but still doesn't feel whole, and there's nothing we can do. In a fit of desperation, she tries to get you to understand how she feels. She unwinds us both, pulling the threads together into something new, and as our consciousnesses drift together, things fade away the moment that the clarity of being whole comes. However, if we came from the adversary, things continue on after the stubborn breaks, because despite its nature, the broken is still here, still believing in us in a way, not leaving. The broken from before was one who felt powerless to her, fallen for a divine power and broken further as the princess he adored fell to her doom. But here, he's accepted a world where we get beaten to death over and over and over. This immense torture was exactly what was to be expected. There hasn't been a pedestal for her to fall from. She was always like this. She stretches us further, impossibly far even, to the point where we separate, and we start to hear more concern in her voice.
Are you still there? Are you still you?
The broken just won't submit to her. We're brought back to whole, and we see her feeling anything but. She looks broken, surrounded by the evidence of her torment. We've brought her down to our level. Despite her overwhelming fury, the princess is still there. She is still herself. Another case of her masking the pain of feeling less than, taking it out on us. It feels pointless to slay her here. Talking to her, we can gain understanding of how she views things now, only knowing violence, only seeing the world we found ourselves in. It feels like all she knew couldn't help her. There's still a piece missing, and obviously, we are that piece. We can help bring her out of this place, showing her that there's more to the two of us than pain. The narrator sounds defeated as we make our way out. The broken is too steadfast to listen to him anymore. He's too stubborn. This is a small thing that I adore with this setup. No matter what, when we meet the Fury, the stubborn is with us. But despite his nature, he can still be broken. But the broken, and also the cold, have been through too much to be put to rest by your torment in the end. The biggest theme present here, as should be obvious, is the idea of identity. How much do you have to change to no longer be yourself? It's a heavy theme to explore, and one that I definitely didn't expect the Fury to tackle. But it is an important one. Can we stop being us? The way the game presents it, and also personal experience, tells me no. With the broken holding on despite the overwhelming torture, it shows that on some level, no matter what we go through, the core of our being will still persist. Even when the stubborn gives up, leaving nothing, and we're put back to whole, we're still ourselves, despite objections. I didn't expect to be bringing up Undertale in this video, but it feels surprisingly relevant when talking about this. Early in the game, we'll get a chance to look into a mirror, to which we're told, it's you. As we continue on through a long journey, we're hunted and attacked by various monsters, but always staying strong. We're determined to make our way back home, and when we get close to the end, we'll see a new home, with another mirror. And when we look into that one, we're told, despite everything, it's still you. Now, yes, this is one of the most notable lines in that game, but it's the same idea. No matter what happens to us, we can still hold on to this sense of identity that we have. We can change all we want, or maybe a terrible fate will befall us, but we still get to be us, and sometimes that's all we need to hold on to. Our next venture is another brand new chapter from the Pristine Cut, one that does link to the idea of identity fairly well. During our initial meeting, we can just kill her and then accept our reward, but obviously the void isn't satisfactory, so we go downstairs and slay ourselves just to end up meeting with the Spectre. Like always, we'll head downstairs and see her ghost floating around, toying with us just a bit. Now, before I move forward here, there is something worth mentioning. Something that seemed fairly inconsequential when I made that first video, but does actually have an impact now. Depending on how we act around this version of her, her personality will shift. If we simply talk to her, leaving her be for the most part, she'll be gentle towards us, calmly asking for a method of escape, which is the version of the Spectre that I discussed in my first video. However, if we try to attack her, she won't be as kind, treating us harshly, and being far more annoyed if we try to betray her. No matter which version of her we end up with, we'll still get a chance to help her escape, letting her possess us so we can walk her outside. They'll both take the opportunity, pushing us to move forward, despite the odd feeling, and escape the cabin. The narrator pushes back, the princess now able to hear his voice. While this internal fight goes on, we get to make our own choice. We're the ones who decide after all. And while the typical choice is to leave, we can slay her. The decision has been made, so we turn the knife back on ourselves and plunge it into our body. She tries to escape, to take control of our arms, pushing against our skin from the inside. She begs for the chance to make us understand her, to see what it's like to be trapped down here like her. We collapse to the ground, feeling our own death take over, her still with us, until we feel a tear. We have been stripped away from ourselves. We still hear the princess's voice in our head, seeing what looks like our body collapsed in front of us. And when we speak out, she hears us. We're separated from the voices that tried to dictate our choices, stuck with the one who seemingly opposed us, literally seeing through her perspective. In a last-ditch effort, the princess, with you in tow, tries to escape the basement before our old body fully dies, like she's gaining understanding of the rules of this world. How, whenever we die, things reset for us both. She has no agency, just being dragged along to the next world, changed by her experience with us. She bursts into a sprint, heading directly towards the stairs, but time slows the closer we get. And in an instant, you are seated in a room that is empty. A chain digs into your wrist, binding one arm to the wall. It is quiet, and you are alone. This is what you deserve. This is what you deserve. This is what you deserve. Well, we're stuck here. Stuck with the princess, in the same way she was stuck with us earlier. Forced to view the world from her point of view. Things are calm at least, despite it being dark and desolate. The inverted background ahead of us truly cementing how different our new perspective is. We can simply just talk to her for a while, waiting for anything to change down here. Her responses change slightly depending on whether she's gentle or harsh. It's just nice not to be alone. The gentle princess is more calm, wanting to understand us, while the harsh is more begrudgingly accepting of our situation, just wanting to make the best of the weirdness, and both accepting that it feels right to be together like this. The fact that in 3 of these 4 scenarios, we found ourselves becoming one with the princess, and having her say that it feels right in some way, it's something that feels so intentional for this new content. We saw it previously in Routes Like the Wild, and that was the only one actually, but it helps support the feeling that even in their separated existences, they're meant to be together, rather than the 2 pieces they were torn into. Everything just works better that way. Of course, back to the current situation, when we look down, we're in sort of a flickering state. Our body isn't quite certain of itself. We're a ghost, or we're not. It's all unclear. All we can really do is wait until we get an option that I adore. Nothing happened until after I saw a title card. The fucking fact, that in-universe, we're able to acknowledge that there's a title card in front of us. It's kind of hilarious and does help tie into this idea that these 2 aren't real beings. Their existence lies fully within the construct that is built for them. The idea of a title card appearing before something makes more sense when it's all you've ever known. After a brief discussion, the princess ends up deciding the title of this new chapter.
Chapter 3: The Princess and the Dragon.
So, a little peek behind the curtain here. Since I was working on my first video when this update came out, and also I wanted to play through the new chapters with a friend, I wasn't able to go through all of the new chapters in a single day or anything before I would hear any information about them. The first 2 I went through, which fittingly are the 2 I haven't talked about yet, were on the first day, with the Fury and this chapter being the next. Within that time, I unfortunately did learn the name of this chapter and the cage, which is a little annoying for me, but my point is, I heard that one chapter would be called The Princess and the Dragon, and I had a feeling that it would be coming after the Spectre, so I had no fucking clue what I'd be experiencing. But hearing that the princess is the one to come up with that name, are we the dragon? Does she see us as a fucking dragon? Like, that's cool as shit, but why? Once our title card is in place, we hear the sound of something entering the cabin. Looking back to our body, we're still in this weird state. But upstairs, the sense of thumping and the grabbing of a certain pristine blade finally sets us in stone. We're like Schrodinger's cat, not being any one thing for certain until the hero decides his perspective, just like in chapter 1. There's a strange horror that comes into play with this. Your fate determined by the views of someone else, not knowing exactly who you'll be until someone else makes the choice for you. Maybe even not realizing that a choice has been made at all. And I think what makes it strange is that if you think about it, it's not that unrealistic. Not all choices are our own, and sometimes we feel we have to conform to a certain viewpoint. And while we don't see our entire beings flicker, on some level we might be. We hear the basement door open and get a chance to call out to us? Who else could be up there? Thumping down the stairs. The dragon has arrived. All I can say is holy shit, we were so wrong about what he looked like. I thought he was like a guy. like a bird guy. There's a word for this and it's furry. Instead, he's this superimposing, hulking being that stares directly into our souls. Surely strong enough to crush us if he tried, like a different fairy. We can try and tell them that we're stuck inside the princess, or hide from them, but either way, it doesn't make a huge difference. We're met with silence, the being's head tilting to the other side, no readable emotions. We're able to glean that the voices and the narrator are likely deep in discussion, the princess being quite used to these bouts of silence from us. Eventually, we do get a response.
Oh, you would like to hear what we're thinking, wouldn't you?
It's clear enough that we're hearing the opportunist, who's now taunting us with the blade. They have the upper hand in this moment. The cold isn't on the same side as them, even missing the one that was there to mediate, by which he means us. Within the body of the Long Quiet, even without a voice, we've been fully acknowledged as the decider, and they know that we're gone. We're, in a sense, seeing what our body would do without us to guide it, like in the cage. But in a much less automated way. Silence returns as the voices start to argue again, and the princess speaks up, revealing our presence to them, and there's a shift. Resistance appears towards the idea of killing her, since you'll be caught in it too, but it doesn't affect the opportunist. He seems to be in the most control here, so the idea of having someone come in to take over his role, it sucks to say, but I kinda get his perspective here to an extent. I still hate him for it though. We used to be a part of that body, but the moment he shows up, without us there, he just takes control, and is perfectly fine overthrowing us. He closes in, blade at the ready, the hero and the cold making it clear that they don't agree with this plan at all. It's all the opportunist, and the narrator. Fuck that guy. The knife hits our body, and the pain spreads. Our harsh princess starts to fight back, and we've returned. Suddenly enough to not be fully noticed in either timeline. If she's gentle, she just sits there, starting to bleed, upset that there was nothing she could do to even deter you. Well, if she's harsh, she slices her own hand off with the blade, freeing herself, seemingly ready to kill us in retaliation. One thing to note is that, in both situations, the basement is much brighter than it was in our initial meeting with her. We're not shrouded in darkness, and the walls are wooden as opposed to the harsh rocky walls we saw initially. It feels like the world itself telling us that she's normal. She's not a ghost or a doll or a god or a knives. She's human, just like us. The basement reflecting the upstairs of the cabin because, let's face it, we're not that different. She's as scared of us as we were of her. We're both victims. We really did need to see the world through our eyes to understand. In both situations, we can relinquish any sense of power we had, dropping the blade to help a gentle princess, or telling a harsh princess that she deserves to go free, without us. The voices celebrate your return, sensing that you made the decision. Well, celebrates. The narrator is a dick still. A gentle princess accepts our kind gesture, while a harsh one presents one of her own, showing how similar the two of us are when the roles get reversed. With our hands together, we ascend back up the stairs, our voices glad not to have to fill the void we left behind, and, ignoring the last objections, we step outside, falling down onto the grass, finally getting to relax with her, for a brief moment, of course, before it all fades yet again. Perspective is something that I love to see played with in stories like this, since in the real world, we can only really be certain of our own view of things. Even if we try to look at things the way others do, we still can't truly understand. All of our experiences are unique, so even going through the exact same experience with someone doesn't mean we'll see eye to eye. And building off of that, there's no one correct view of things. The way we view the princess changes constantly, but just because it's what we see, doesn't mean it's the true way. And the same is true of the princess. She may see us as this terrifying creature, but even if we can act that way, it doesn't mean that's true of us either. I thought about this route a fair bit while I was in Brisbane recently. There was an art piece, all the way through Burnout Lane, titled Symbols of an Extraordinary Life. We walked down this lane, seeing the assortment of shapes that didn't seem to repeat. But as we walked, we would see the solid brown colour being replaced by splotches of neon green, a shift that went on for quite a while, evolving until the other side of the lane was reached, becoming a solid neon green at the end. But that's only one way to go down that street. From the other direction, it's green to brown, and I can't imagine that the artist thought either one of those directions was the correct one. Is the idea that plants are coming from the soil, growing into bright green, or thriving early on, but fading away as life goes on? There's no definite answer to that, and in fact I found a website that discusses this piece, but it refers to it as orange and yellow. So even the colour can come down to a difference in perspective. That's just part of our experience as people. But what if we don't take that lesson away from our experience? What if we try to kill her anyway, or fail to stop her from taking her revenge? We stab her, or she stabs us, but you are torn between two places.
Come back to me!
You are power and you are weakness. You are hope and you are despair. You are acceptance and you are rejection. You are the canvas and you are the painter. You are the victim and you are the victimizer. You are life and you are death. The hero and the princess and the dragon. We're here and yet we're not. We're her and yet ourselves. We are the same. Why were we even fighting with ourselves in the first place? Even with different perspectives, we are one. Does our role really have to be locked to just one option?
We're back together again.
Maybe. Why were we fighting each other?
There isn't some certain set track that we have to follow. We can be the decider. Do what's right for us, ignoring the voices in our head telling us no. We can be whoever we want to be. And we can keep in mind that others have this ability as well, and even help them to see this if they think that they don't. We're approaching the end now, only 2 new chapters left to discuss, and since there's a pattern going now, it's only fitting that we talk about another route that was extended with this update, the last of the 3 that were. One thing that struck me about these is while they did all feel that they could end quite quickly, one thing you could give the old Den and Fury routes is that some options did feel like an ending. With the Fury unwinding us, something that did feel like death at the time, and the Den potentially fighting with us for some time, or getting caught in the tunnel. Both things that felt somewhat fitting as a way to see her off. But with this remaining route, the way things ended felt entirely like a cliffhanger, her being taken away before we got the chance to do much at all. I was most excited to see this route when I heard that it would be getting actual content in the update, and it was everything that I was hoping for. It's time to talk about the apotheosis. Our journey to her takes us back through the tower, but after we go down to meet her, blade in hand, rather than stubbornly resisting her power, we basically have to submit to her rule, understanding how unstoppable she is. There's some variance within how we go about this. We can choose to go in without the blade, knowing it won't help, and trying to resist when she commands us to reveal why we're here. Of course, that resistance doing nothing to stop her from looking into our minds, and learning that she's destined to end the world. She takes pleasure in the fact that we have no way of gaining the strength to defy her, especially without our one weapon. Alternatively, we can bring the knife and try to resist, but not manage to do enough to overthrow her, commanding us to end our life, as punishment for our insolence. In both situations, she shows total control by sensing the narrator's presence, and removing him as an obstacle between her and us. Oh hey, they changed the screen sound. With him gone, our end is inevitable. Our life ended either by her, or by her with us slightly involved. Our time with her ends, but soon we'll see her again. There are 2 voices we can discover when we come back to life. Either the paranoid, if we were afraid of her impact, not even bringing down the knife, or the contrarian, trying to defy her, but not doing enough to fight back. Let's start with the contrarian, who is more than happy to just be snarky about all that we see here. The cabin is in full view from the beginning. At the high point of the mountain we have essentially just spawned in on. The narrator tries to tell us of the impact of being in our 3rd version of this world, but it's essentially irrelevant, because as we start to move, whether that be towards the cabin, or away, or even just showing indifference to the situation, we feel the ground quaking all around us, everything we see breaking apart, being pulled towards the cabin, and with another step forward, everything explodes, slamming us back against the tree, unable to move as the final step in her ascension takes full force. She looms far above the limits of the world we knew, everything literally revolving around her as it's destroyed. The pristine blade is just within reach, and since we didn't get a chance to use it against her before, it's time to take down a guard. We steady ourselves, the narrator hammering in that all that remains is her and us, and we jump high into the air, gravity pulling us towards her body, her showing no fear, not believing us to be capable of tearing her down. As we land against her, we attempt to drive the blade into her heart, attempt being a gravely important word. Her skin is too strong to be affected by mortal weapons. Her expression remains unchanged, picking us up and speaking her divine truth, that there's nothing we can do to stop her. But the contrarian remains determined. It's his nature to fight against the forces that bind us after all. In a fit of desperation, we hurl the blade directly towards her eye. Who even knows if that will work? It worked! She feels a pain she believes she can never feel, dropping us to the ground. She refuses to accept that she's been knocked off her pedestal, an even higher one than the one she had been on in the last chapter, and prepares to smite us, projecting pure burning light against us, incinerating our body, damning us both. believing that our suffering will fix what we've done to her, but the world fades away, and nothing she can do can hurt us. She's defeated, but only barely by our hand. Rather, she was defeated by the acceptance that she wasn't everything. Within this path, I see the idea that no obstacle is truly insurmountable. Obstacles can appear constantly in our lives, and sometimes feel like they're the size of the whole world. But if we keep trying hard enough, eventually we can find a way through them. Hell, we just took down a god. Just one strike in the right place was enough. There's always a way out of things. While we can go through the final route I'll discuss here with the Contrarian, I do want to switch over to the Paranoid, because they too are capable of trying to resist her divine might. Like before, we step forward, unleashing her into her world. We take our blade and launch ourselves towards her again, ready to slay her, though the Broken has total doubt over our abilities. In total contrast, the Paranoid, having understood that our beliefs change her, puts all of his belief into the idea that we can beat her, that she's not the perfect god she claims to be. What stands out the most to me here is that the Paranoid admits that he's not really okay, but nothing here really is. Maybe we won't be okay when we feel a force against us like this, but if we push against it, believing that we can, maybe we can actually overcome it, and that victory will lead us down the path to feeling okay again. The Paranoid's belief manifests as we strike her, causing an explosion of dust, launching us far away. She still is whole, only slightly scuffed from our impact, but the Broken keeps his doubts about her abilities, while she prepares to retaliate against us. Oh fuck, that is so cool. I knew they looked like eyes, but I always saw that as just a pattern against the fabric, and not actually functioning eyes. She takes a moment to question whether we have the tenacity to truly destroy her, before launching a volley of debris directly onto us, crushing us under all that surrounded us. While caught in her attack, we try to convince the Broken that he plays an important role here, that worshipping her isn't the way out he thinks it is. Why would a god want to destroy the one most loyal to her after all? Despite her power, we're just convincing enough, all voices throwing away any doubts, and bursting through the rubble. Our blade guides us to her, ready to strike, but hitting a barrier of light. We stay persistent, pushing our beliefs to the limit. There has to be a way to win. Little by little, we overpower her, cracks in her barrier forming. The hero has faith, the Paranoid has faith, and even the Broken has faith. We break through, but her undying power is still enough to stop us before we strike, removing reality by force, giving us a clear view of the void. She isn't taken away. She reaches up towards the nothingness and takes hold. Pain unlike any other fills us, a hurt that seems impossible. She isn't even touching us, as far as the voices know, at least. The Paranoid quickly gains an understanding of ourselves, and the trio realize that we can use the nothingness that we are to finally take her down. The Broken even doubles down on the torment, showing dominance over the one he used to worship. We feel ourselves as nothingness, and infiltrate her endless being, turning her into a broken shell of a god, connected with her yet again, but in a completely different way, us tearing her apart. Our beliefs grew so strong that we could do anything. It was almost like we were the ones who ascended to destroy her belief in herself. We knew all that she was, but if we felt powerless against her, then there was no way we could actually succeed. Sometimes faith in ourselves is all we need to push ourselves that little bit further, and succeed in whatever goal we have. Last of all, we saw a snippet of this route just a moment ago, though we took a long path to get to it. What happens if we accept her as a god, without fighting back? Ignoring the blade and accepting our better, we fly up into space, landing softly on her shoulder, the little bird being right where he belongs. The narrator and the world fade away once again, seemingly decided by her. She looks up towards the void, understanding that it isn't the limits of reality, that existence is present outside of our construct, comparing it to the allegory of the cave, prisoners only bearing witness to shadows on a cave wall, while she's more akin to the philosopher, searching for answers outside of all that she's ever known. We feel as she reaches towards the nothingness, her accepting us as being part of this escape into the world. And then her grip tightens. Like before, we feel indescribable pain, a black hole of suffering with no escape. We can scream, but it does no good. Her determined to claw through the infinity that we are, us feeling everything as vividly as we can. She promises the pain is worth it, but we can question this, choosing to reject her view of things. Now that it's bringing about this level of torture, we feel ourselves being ripped open, and make her suffer, make her feel what she's made us feel. Like before, we unravel, but without the tenacity to believe we can destroy her, we simply grab hold of her form, tearing her away from her dreams of escape, trapped like a prisoner in this construct ever still, but in the distance we can see it. The small smidgen of the real world that lays beyond. The voices realize that they're viewing perfection. In her last moments, she shows contempt for us. Hurt contempt to be specific. She was desperate for escape, to be real, but that's been torn away from her. It's hard to construct a solid lesson from this route alone, but that might be because there's a lot more to explore here. If we decide to suffer in silence, we feel ourselves being torn to pieces, feeling that we are nothing. But then soon, the pain ends, and we open our eyes to see what that suffering was for. Everything feels different the moment our true nature is revealed to us, and the beauty of the world graces our eyes. She steps towards the tear in the construct, staring into the beauty of a world we've never reached, the endless existence that we're meant to be a part of. But before we can cross the threshold, she stops, being held back by an unseen force.
What remnant of the old could possibly be left to defy me?
Herself. Arms of the shifting mound begin to cover her being, climbing up to envelop her and take her away, preventing her from seeing all that she wished to be part of. In a completely different way than before, she's powerless, feeling her essence being dragged away from reality, and from you. In a last-ditch effort, she doesn't try to save herself, instead lifting us up higher, away from their grasp. As she feels herself being taken by them, she tells us how much we matter, and hurls us towards the beyond, wanting us to experience it, even if she can't. We get close, but not close enough to escape the construct, the barrier healing too soon. This path is a step beyond what I expected to see from the apotheosis, and I mean that in the best way possible. Fighting against her, taking down a god, it all felt very natural for the progression here, but having her ascend to a level of omniscience where she could tear open the construct, giving us that immense pain as our freedom came to light, I was amazed when I first witnessed it. I expected something significantly lighter from us accepting our role with her, and I couldn't be gladder to be so wrong. There's a question of how much we should suffer for a great thing, whether the pain is worth it, the idea of fighting back against those who destroy us. Not accepting that pain is what is needed to find a better path. But there's also the fact that in the end, she was never unstoppable. If it wasn't us stopping her, it was the shifting mound. And from that, we see that we truly did matter to her. She wanted us to be free in her final moments. We weren't an accessory or a barrier for her. We were a part of this. A part of her. The idea of godhood is something that I love to see explored, especially when it comes to Greek mythology. And yet I still haven't played Hades. So when we see the apotheosis, a being that ascended to the level of a god, it's interesting to see her brash nature, how intent she is on showing off, lording over us with her untold power, but she's stopped by the shifting mound, one who has always been a god by her own view of things. Her actions don't feel as show-offy, there's no taking over the narrator or having the world orbit her. The shifting mound's godhood is stable, she just simply is who she is. The endless pile of princesses that make up her being are part of the natural state of her. It doesn't feel like she was meant to be anything less. It's a contrast that I find really interesting, attained versus inherent godhood. A stark difference, even if the apotheosis is as close as she can get to her true self. There's no real lesson that I can glean from any of that. They're just themes that made it so that the apotheosis was bound to be a chapter I adored, especially now that her story is complete. Now, there's one more chapter left to discuss, but before that, there is another stone that's left unturned here. I frequently ended these segments by talking about how we can save her, as I find that this is where I see the most meaning within these routes. Since my true belief is that saving her is the best choice we can make. It feels right to be kind to her, even if she hasn't given us the same grace. She's still a part of us after all. That is to say, while I do aim to go for everything, I don't love the moments where we're needlessly cruel to her. Luckily, there aren't too many routes where that feels like the case. Ones like destroying the princess after escaping from the wild, or throwing the cage's head back into the pit. These choices exist, and make enough sense as options for us to choose, but at least for me, it can feel wrong to choose them. Of course, I bring all this up because all of these cruel routes lead towards the new ending that the Pristine Cut introduces. In the end of everything, certain actions within routes will open up new dialogue options when confronted with the vessels from our journey, or treating these vessels as beneath us. They never mattered, we were always stronger, we don't need them. This is a world where we choose to have zero care for her at all, consistently. And with all that I've discussed, even though there are no wrong choices, this certainly feels that way. While she speaks her divine truth towards us, we've essentially shown that we don't need her. She tries to strike against us, but taking advantage of our infinite form, we take hold of hers, removing any chance of her winning at the end of her struggles. She begs for us not to cause this level of harm, but not to her, to ourselves. Suddenly, she is gone, and you are truly alone. There are no voices alongside us in this ending, no remnant of her that can be felt despite her passing. We tear apart the construct ourselves, revealing a brand new world. Our new world. It's totally under our control. This world shows an endless ocean, the sky filled with the vision of a massive black hole. It feels wrong. Oh, so wrong. Before everything was revealed, the game told us that there are worse things to be than alone. And those worse things feel like what we've become. We're alone because of how we've treated all that we've ever known, ruthlessly destroying every outstretched hand we were given. A world free from death, from change, one that never decays. It's the world that the narrator dreamed of, one where we rule without any regard for the part of us that was destroyed. Now, I've said it a million times, I kinda hate the narrator. I think he's wrong, he's deeply flawed in his beliefs. And things feel so right when we keep the princess with us in some way. I've seen many say that this ending feels unsatisfying, and I can't imagine that not being the point of it. How does it feel to be this cruel? To destroy a part of you? For a reward that feels unsettling? Wrong? Is it worth getting the achievement for getting here? For hurting the princess as much as we did just to see this outcome? Now, of course, maybe you disagree and see the bright side of a world without change, viewing this as a fair outcome. After all, nothing makes it incorrect. And just because I don't agree doesn't mean that can't be true. But I have to talk about the last chapter that this update added. I feel like there could be no better way to explain this unsettling feeling than discussing it. Once again, this chapter is brand new, and in fact was the first completely brand new one that I experienced. I went in fully aware that the prisoner, the spectre, and the damsel would lead towards these new routes, but of course I had no idea how they'd really be reached. The damsel certainly felt the most straightforward out of those three before the Pristine Cut came out, so curiosity grew about how it could change. Most of the chapter was quite straightforward, either us freeing her, slaying her, or watching her deconstruct, showing how hollow she really was. I was expecting the way things branched out to be completely new, since her personality was so static before. There'd need to be a strong shake-up to lead to a secret fourth thing. I wasn't yet aware that the other two didn't take an approach like this at all, both branching out in ways that replaced already existing parts of their structure. But luckily, my assumption was correct. The damsel does introduce a new element to lead to the next chapter. Whether we approach the end by trying to free her, or seeing her become a shell of what she appeared to be, we can prevent the end with a simple suggestion. With the damsel, we've only ever viewed her as a damsel in distress for us to save, the smitten being with us to help push forward. But what if we're in love with her and want to stay with her forever? It's not such a far leap here, especially if we have played other routes, and know that the moment she goes outside, or we see the void coming in, she's about to leave us. With it in mind, it feels like one of the only chances we've gotten to prevent the inevitable. We suggest that we can stay here forever, and for the first time, she hesitates to go along with us. She resists the idea of staying put, which only makes sense for someone whose true nature is to change. And also, she doesn't even know us. Her reluctance is enough to alert the smitten, even as she tries to be accepting of what we want. There's just enough pain behind her eyes to drive him to do something crazy, believing that the cause of her timidity is this place, the narrator. Maybe she'd love us if she saw the contents of our heart. Our hands move up towards our chest, and yes, he was being literal. The smitten grasps at our body and pulls us apart, exposing our heart to her, and she starts to understand. But then everything goes dark, and we die. We've previously seen the voices take control, within the princess and the dragon, for one, or the other time that the smitten kills us in the damsel. When they take control like this, it's usually just for a brief time, but their impact is quite strong, and when they end our lives, it's hard to know exactly what will come next. So before we even see that reality, it's not called Chapter 3, and it doesn't start with the. More than any other chapter, this one starts on such a strange note. As we fade back into reality, we are already in the cabin, and it appears much more regal than we're used to seeing it. We saw some of this energy within the tower's cabin as well, but this room feels more welcoming, filled with bright lights, stained glass windows depicting the princess in a state of calm, holding what we can presume is meant to be our heart. We show the narrator that we've been here before, now joined by either the skeptic or the opportunist, depending on what preceded our suggestion of staying together. It only takes a few moments to notice that something is missing in this space. The blade isn't here at all. This isn't the first time this has happened, of course. The Wraith had no blade for us to find, and the Thorn, as well as the Greys, started with it within their grasps. Realistically, there could still be a blade here, but there's something even more noteworthy missing. Where the hell is the smitten? He hasn't said anything yet, and the voices can tell that he just isn't with us any longer. Once again, this is something that we've experienced briefly before, but it's yet another oddity in this chapter. The list of small things piling up so that this initial pleasant view feels weird. Like always, we approach the mirror, making our way past it, to a staircase that leads up towards her. A quite comforting one too. The narrator can't even make his funny quip about how slaying her would be doing her a favour. She calls out pleasantly, with a promise of dinner, as we ascend to the top. Seeing her face to face again, she sat far away, and looking closely, we can see the pristine blade hung around her neck, far away from our grasp. This is another grandiose room, lit by torchlight. The walls are adorned with images of us both, depicting a loving relationship, one that the smitten desired. The only part of this room that doesn't seem bright is the shadow dancing behind her, flickering with the flames, looming high above the princess, menacingly. The narrator insists that killing her would be easy, since the blade is pointed directly at her heart, but even if we wanted to, it's not like we need to rush. This is such a comforting place. Everything feels serene for once. And either way, we're forced to sit down, sitting opposite her at the head of the massive table. We can question the situation further, or we can have the dinner she promised. The shadow moving across the table, leaving behind a grand feast for us. We can refuse, but there's no harm in digging in, sampling an exquisite banquet with her, dishes that exist beyond our wildest dreams, tasting delightful flavors. It's all so perfect. Maybe even too perfect. As the meal ends, we're still hungry somehow, like it didn't nourish us at all. The princess insists we feast again, and everything repeats. The shadow brings a meal into existence, but this time the meal is good. It's not as stellar as before. We don't get those same divine flavors and sensation that we remember. As it ends, we're still just as hungry, and the princess admits that she is too. She too understands that it wasn't as good, but insists it'll be fine if we keep going. Once again, a feast laid out in front of us, this time being fine. Nothing special, just being a meal, maybe even one not worth finishing. Yet again, it's over, and we still hunger. She begins to sound desperate, wanting everything to feel like that first time, hoping that maybe this time it will be right. But now it's even worse. Each element is gross, unlike how it began. It's enough to make us feel sick. The narrator tries to reassure us, saying that at least the memory of that initial moment is there.
I'm so tired of this.
With the princess's words comes the beginning of darkness. One torch flickering out entirely. She appears scared. We both want to keep those torches lit. Sitting in the dark doesn't feel right. Now, the sight that we just saw, that was the pain of stasis. We were briefly caught in a moment where nothing changed. We ate, felt no nourishment, continued to eat but still felt nothing. The sensation feeling worse the more we repeated it. We felt the feeling of nothingness as a reward, and seen an unchanging world in that previous ending. But here, we've begun to live through it. To an extent it makes sense. We got into the situation by suggesting that we stay put. The smitten making her believe in this idea. Also, just to clear things up, because it's a pretty reasonable thing to have figured out by now, the shadow dancing behind her, setting the table, and if we try to stand up, forcing us back down, that is the smitten. The skeptic is able to figure this out. He whispers sweet nothings to the princess, ruling over this version of our world, literally from the shadows. He's now the warden of the prison we're trapped in, and now more than ever, both us and the princess feel like equals, especially since she too seems scared of what could happen. Trying to keep things going, she suggests we play a game, and the food scraps transform into a board game, seeming elegant at first. It's easy enough to figure out the game, the opportunist taking pleasure in trying his hardest to win. Our first game was a wonderful experience, a back and forth that's hard to compare to any other game, but before a climax hits, we have to restart. It's not quite the same, we're used to this now. Every repeat feels a bit more stale, an exercise in passing time. Even the narrator sees how terrible this is, and comes to a realization. This world is like a microcosm of the idea of his ideal world, one without change at all, our new world from before. Seeing it presented like this, actually experiencing what it's like to be part of it, it feels like he realizes how flawed it is. The game goes on, feeling more complicated, the rush of new rules only briefly keeping us fulfilled. Eventually, the princess gives up on the game, and another torch falls. She promises that everything is okay, it being unclear whether she's talking to us, the smitten, or maybe just herself. We dare to ask her if she's happy, and can feel her fear and hesitation as she responds, not wanting to admit her feelings at first, but then revealing that, despite all that we see here,
I don't feel anything.
A third torch goes out, the shadow looming only just above her throne now, weaker in the darkness. Maybe his influence will vanish if we extinguish that last light, but even then, we don't know all that will happen. We can continue with this facade of a perfect life, putting our hope towards keeping that torch lit, but things end immediately. Feels like accepting the static hell we're trapped in. Instead, we can ask her what she wants to do, something that would have deconstructed her in the previous chapter.
I think I'd like to dance under the stars.
Fully accepting the pain of our situation, she admits her truest feelings.
I'm not happy here. I don't think I ever was.
The final torch goes out, the shadow disappearing, and she sobs. This, for me, is easily the most upsetting scene in this game. When I talked about the thorn, a big part of why it stuck out to me, and others, is because of how real it feels. She regresses from a being that we have reason to fear, to one who was hurt, afraid, feeling more human than how she acted in other routes. Of course, some of the appeal for many comes from the fact that we can kiss the thorn, but that wouldn't have happened in a route where we couldn't connect with her in such a meaningful way. With this chapter, it too feels real, but in a way that's much heavier to talk about. The light staying on, keeping us trapped in this pseudo-perfect scenario, one where we had no agency. We were helpless, trying to believe that things were okay even as they slowly got worse. The torches snuff out slowly, as it can take a while for us to see and accept the reality of a bad situation. We may try to convince ourselves that we're happy when things end up like this, but over time we'll feel the roughness against our soul, and start to see things for what they really are. The forces holding us in our false reality vanish, and we're left to just sit with those emotions. We weren't happy, we never were. We were just lying to ourselves to avoid accepting reality. We live in fear of the idea of those torches burning out, willing to accept the falsehood because it seems easier, but it's not. This chapter is the one that hits me the hardest out of anything this game holds, because I know I've been in this situation. This is the exact thing I talked about in my last video about this game, having to accept you're not fine after going through hell. It didn't take me long to understand the truth of what was going on here, which isn't something I experience much with these stories. And it feels so weird to see your story presented within your favorite thing. I felt even more seen than I had been before. This was me. I'm in the fucking game. With the princess's collapse, we could slay her. Something that feels so cold that even the narrator admits that he doesn't think we should anymore. He's seen the error in playing God. His own world isn't worth this. The princess doesn't react at all. It's a desolate ending to this route. We don't deserve desolation. When we've been brought down to this level of despair, we need a light at the end of the tunnel. Something or someone to help guide us, and help us believe that we will be okay. If we instead ask if she's okay, she tells us this.
No, it feels like an important part of me is gone. But I'm still here. I don't know what to do with that. I don't know how I'm supposed to pick up the pieces.
I started sobbing immediately after hearing this. I felt like I had had this exact thought before. I'm still here, trying to deal with all that happened, and struggling to put the pieces back together. Rebuilding things can be hard, monumentally hard, but life goes on. Ignoring those emotions isn't going to help. We have to sit with them in order to get past these things. The two stand up, now free from the Smitten's imperfect world, and move towards the exit.
Do you still care about me?
There's no reason to be cruel. We wouldn't want to hear that cruelness ourselves. We give her support instead, claiming it may be worth us finding out how we feel about each other on our own terms. The narrator accepts our desire to leave, instead of finding obstacles put in our way, and we walk outside with her, hand in hand. Now that we're outside, the narrator fades away. But for once, the world doesn't.
The stars are so beautiful. I meant it when I said I wanted to dance.
We get the chance to dance with her, under the stars, instead of her immediately being taken away. We've saved her so many times, and watched as the world ended around us. Her feeling cold as that freedom vanished. But for once, after all that we've been through, they get to just be together, outside of the oppressive walls of the cabin, and just indulge in something special. This is the most beautiful scene in this game. Seeing the princess's smile grow on her tear-stained face, feeling each other's rhythm, feeling real affection despite always being told that she's our enemy. It's the perfect moment you dream of after all of the hurt. Something to hold on to in the bad times. I've never been able to watch through this scene without tearing up. There's this mix of solemnity and optimism within something as simple as a dance that just gets to me. I've said countless times that they're perfect for each other. They deserve their eternity together, and for a brief moment, we get to see them have it, but everything does fade eventually, and she's brought back to the shifting mound. At first, I was so hopeful that this route actually was the new ending they spoke of, as opposed to something new at the end of everything like we actually got, because I wanted to believe that their happiness could be eternal. But just because it wasn't, doesn't mean it wasn't something special. The song in the background also helps add beauty to this moment. It has a somber energy to it, with just enough positivity that it starts to feel hopeful. Also, the two creators of this game have stated that the song played for the first dance of their wedding, which makes it feel even more special, seeing that the creators had their own strong connection to this moment in a way. Happily Ever After, as a chapter, can represent a lot of things. But for me, what it represents the most is the effect that depression can have on us, and how denial can keep us trapped, further from being able to accomplish our goals, even if they do seem as simple as being able to dance beneath the stars. The Pristine Cut, as an update, completes Slay the Princess. It fills in the missing pieces that we didn't even know were there. The themes being explored feel fully fleshed out, and the gallery helps us to see just how much of this beautiful world we've seen, giving us incentive to learn from all the scenarios the game presents, from the links between humanity and instinct, and reminding us that we can escape the cycle we find ourselves in, to seeing that change won't make you less of yourself, and being empathetic, remembering that others can be just like us, to having faith in what we do, and accepting the truth when things fall apart. This game is a love story, but it's also one about change, and what we can do to manage its constant presence, since living in a world without it just feels wrong. If you're still here, feel free to support this video by liking and subscribing, helping more people see it. That's all for now. I'll be back someday, changed by another gaming experience, surely.